Hey internet friends, it is Multiplier here today to show you a trick, something that 99% of people just don't know. And it is not a repeat, this is not a video about this button here in Ableton. It's not a video about that, there's a better way. So what's the best way to take some audio and extract the MIDI information, extract the notes, the piano notes, the musical information? Taking, say, some audio like this, and extracting the notes that were used to play that sound, that audio, which is incredibly useful for remixing. If, say, you want to layer something over the top, you'd want to play the same notes at the same time. Or if you wanted to, say, recreate the melody with a different instrument, you could do that if you had the MIDI. So how do you do this? What's the trick? In Ableton, you might think you could do right-click, convert melody to a MIDI track, like so. Theoretically, this works. However, as you can see, it almost always fails. In fact, I'd say 98% of the time it just doesn't work. Maybe half or 2/3 of the time it kind of works, enough for you to recreate the pieces afterwards. Maybe it tells you some of the notes, but not other notes, so you can almost figure out from what's there what the correct MIDI is. So it almost gives you a starting point to then build from. But as I say, 98% of the time it just doesn't work at all. And so, what's the trick? Multiply. You've been talking for seconds. Tell me the trick. Tell me how to properly do this. Okay, the trick is to use a plugin called Melodyne. Now, this is not a sponsored video. I'll repeat, this is not a sponsored video. I'll include a link below if you like the idea of this, and it'll be an affiliate link, so it costs the same to you, but I get a small percentage. Every dollar helps. So how do we do this in Melodyne? Like this. Record it in, transfer it in, and as you can see, it's extracted the note information correctly. Now, if we have this version or this version or this version, we can export the MIDI up here, saving this MIDI as a MIDI file. We can then drag into our project, like so. Or if we have the cheaper version of Melodyne, this guy, we can just read it off manually. Look at the notes there and manually transcribe it. See what Melodyne says, and then draw this out in piano roll yourself, manually, which isn't a big deal. You don't have to do it that often. And obviously in some situations it's easier than others. In this case, the rhythm's extremely simple. Note, 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 8 times on the quarter beats. So incredibly simple rhythmically. If there's a complex rhythm and lots of notes, it'll be harder to transcribe. So if you don't want to do it manually, make sure you get one of these 2 versions to save and export as MIDI. In addition, and this is important, we need to talk about now monophonic versus polyphonic audio. What are these fancy words and what do they mean? So monophonic audio is situations where there's one note at a time. Monophonic, one note at a time. Whereas polyphonic audio has multiple notes at the same time. Think of chords. So this is monophonic and this is polyphonic. Monophonic, polyphonic. One note at a time, multiple notes at the same time. To analyze polyphonic audio, such as chords, you need this version of Melodyne. However, and again, this is important too, polyphonic analysis just doesn't work as well as monophonic. Monophonic's easy. So if you have monophonic audio, this works incredibly reliably, almost 99% of the time from my experience, even in the 1% where it's not quite perfect, it's almost perfect. So for monophonic audio, consider this a perfect solution, unlike in the case of Ableton. However, for polyphonic audio, it's just not quite as reliable. It'll always get close, or at least in the same spirit as the original. See how it's close, but not quite correct? Whereas on monophonic audio, where there's just one note at a time, it's pretty much always perfect. Melodyne, using Melodyne is pretty much perfect in those situations. But why is polyphonic difficult? Why is it difficult to analyze chords, for example? It's all to do with maths and what a note means, what a note is, mathematically speaking. So take this, for example. We have operator here in Ableton, and let's draw in 2 additional harmonics. So we have the fundamental and 2 additional harmonics. I'll show you this audibly and visually as I draw them in, playing the same note each time, the same note on the keyboard, F2. So in all three cases, we're playing F2, and you can see the harmonics resulting, the frequencies. So let's look at this F2 with the two additional harmonics, this. Now look at the frequencies involved here, the sine wave frequencies. We have F2, F3, and C4. So this F2 tone could be viewed as three sine waves. So we could look at this sound as being one note, an F2, or three notes, three sine waves, or two notes, an F2 and an F3, an F2 with these harmonics, and an F3 sine wave. So how do we analyze this thing? What is it? Is it one note, two notes, or three notes? Well, it's neither, it's all of them. It's one, two, and three notes. It just depends how we look at it. And it's that sort of mathematics that makes polyphonic analysis so difficult. And that, of course, is quite a simple bit of audio. You can imagine if the audio is more complex, you have even more choices, more mathematically consistent options. So polyphonic analysis, polyphonic analysis is difficult and less consistent, less reliable. For one-note melodies, Melodyne is perfect. For monophonic audio, Melodyne is perfect. But for polyphonic sounds, polyphonic audio, analyzing chords, and so on, well, it's just not quite as perfect. It's still much better than Ableton. In Ableton, you can analyze chords using Convert Harmony to new MIDI track. But anyway, as I say, Melodyne's much better than Ableton's feature. And if you do want to do polyphonic analysis in Melodyne, make sure you get this version. These two versions don't do polyphonic analysis. This version does do polyphonic analysis. And as I say, this is not a sponsored video. I repeat, this is not a sponsored video, but there is an affiliate link below. So if you do decide to get Melodyne, use the link. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but helps support the channel. I think I get 1% or 2% or 3%, some small percentage of the overall cost. And as I say, it's the same cost to you, but helps support the channel. If you found this interesting, which hopefully you have. My name is Multiplier. I shall catch you guys on the flippity flip.